Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your guest co-host, the two-time handicapper of the year, Mr. Andrew Gombis, and the host of the Club and Sub podcast, Mr. John Stargarian. Today, we're going to talk about UFC 326, Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira, the rematch, which the first time went down in Saskatoon, Canada in 2015. So over 10 years later, they're going to run it back. And my friends, it's going down this Saturday night live at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. We got the former featherweight champion, the current BMF champion, taking on the former lightweight champion and the man with the most finishes in UFC lightweight history. Unbelievable fight. So my friends, let's not waste any time. Let's get right down to business. Because in this main event, we got the BMF champ, Max Holloway. He's 27-8, taking on Charles Oliveira, who's 36-11. Currently, they got it Max Holloway minus 230. The comeback on Charles Oliveira is plus 195. So Dubronx, 2 years older at 36, Max an inch taller at 5'11, but it's Charles who's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage at 74 inches of reach. So, man, the first time they fought, we didn't really get to see much. You know, Max went out there, landed a couple body shots, looked like Dubronx didn't like it. And at the time, you know, Charles hadn't really caught up. The mental hadn't caught up to the physical back then. But ever since then, you know, you see what he's done lately. But yeah, at that point, times were different. Now they run it back. You see what both men have accomplished. Andrew Gombis, welcome to Half the Battle. And what do you think about this main event rematch?
Happy to be here as always. It's a banger fight. I think the line's probably pretty close to accurate. I think that Holloway is going to be the clear minute winner here. I think he's better technically. Charles obviously has a lot of pop in his shots, but I don't think he's the caliber striker that Max is. I guess the big question here is if Charles can get the grappling going, because Max historically has had very good takedown defense on one hand, but on the other hand, you could make the case that he's not avoided like it's his fault. Like there just weren't that many good grapplers at the top of that division. He's had fights with like Yair Rodrigues and Volkanovski, which 3 times, which were all stand-up fights, and Arnold Allen stand-up fight. Plenty of examples. I tend to think he's pretty competent there, and I think I give him a lot of knockout equity early. I know that typically hasn't been his thing. He's been a guy who pours on volume over 5 rounds, wins by decision or late finish. I think here Charles is going to go right after it from the jump, and I actually think that he's going to eat some shots, and I think there's a good chance that Max puts him away early. So I'll say Holloway by second round knockout.
Okay. And that's a great point about how he hasn't fought too many grapplers, right? Like he fought Charles the first time, but it went down how it went down. Fought Frankie, but we could argue it was the ghost of Frankie. Was supposed to fight Khabib. As y'all may know, that's the reason why Al Iaquinta fought Khabib. Because do you remember Max had that interview with Bisping where he was like slurring, and Bisping's like, "Max, are you okay?" And then they pull Max out of the fight, and we never got Max versus Khabib. So we got Al Iaquinta versus Khabib. I think it was supposed to be Al Iaquinta versus Paul Felder that night, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, I digress. John Stargarian, welcome back to Half the Battle. What do you think about this main event?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Dan. I appreciate it. I guess I sort of think Max should be fine. Like, I don't want to dismiss Charles because obviously he's one of the most dangerous fighters in the history of the sport. And, Max did get finished 2 fights ago. So, the idea that he could get finished here is not crazy or anything to me. I just feel like, yeah, there is limited footage on his grappling, but Ilya got on top of him twice, in their fight 2 fights ago. And he's not as dangerous as Charles, but I mean, he's a damn good jiu-jitsu player himself, and Max did a pretty good job keeping the whizzer intact, not really giving his back up too much to him to get back up. I sort of think, maybe he could give up a back take or 2. I don't think it happens at a high clip. I actually kind of hot take is that if Charles gets to the back or in a position to finish the fight, my instinct is that it's going to be on the back of hurting Max. That's kind of my big concern for him in this fight. Obviously, Max, a guy who relied on his shin for years and years and years, just all-time elite durability. And obviously, he got put to sleep by Ilya, 2 fights ago. And, despite beating Dustin fairly thoroughly in his last fight, he did get hurt really badly in that fight by like a short check right hook. And I do think we're kind of hitting the point in Max Holloway's career where, you're going to see the chin continue to start to deteriorate. And obviously Charles, he's got plenty of power himself. So like Charles hurting him and getting to like a submission position wouldn't shock me. But I just think a lot of it's front loaded. And to Andrew's point, I feel like the boxing is just night and day here. Max, very precise, both when he goes first and on the counter. And Charles, for as violent as he is, the guy has never seen a punch he wasn't willing to eat on his chin. I think Max really, unless he gets hurt or gives up a back take, should really tune him up. And I think if it goes late, you just expect the classic Max takeover here. So, yeah, I mean, I give Charles, some moment equity and a fair amount of finishing equity early in this fight, but I just feel ultimately Max is the better fighter. And I think if it exits the early rounds, Max is probably going to put it on him pretty badly.
To your point, John, you mentioned how Max has the reputation of being ultra durable, right? It was always never been knocked down, never been knocked out, just like another legendary Hawaiian warrior, BJ Penn, until they got knocked down and knocked out. And you mentioned, the Poirier fight. Hey, how about 2 fights prior to that against Gaethje? That was the first time that Max Holloway had ever been dropped. And now it's been 3 fights in a row that he's been dropped. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen again Saturday night, but what I am saying is a guy who went his whole career where it was like, this guy's never been knocked down, to 3 fights in a row he's been knocked down. That's clear evidence that, I mean, look, on one hand, you could say, hey, but Justin Gaethje hits like a truck. Ilia Topuria hits like a truck. Dustin Poirier hits like a truck. So, you got me there, but then I could counter you and say, yeah, but guess what? I saw Max and Dustin go 5 rounds in Atlanta, Georgia, right in front of my eyes, where both guys were landing KO blows and neither guy hit the deck, So I do agree with you that, I'm not saying his chin is gone by any means. That would be absolutely categorically false. But what I am saying is that it's definitely diminished a bit. But similar things can be said about Charles, man. Charles gets dropped in a majority of his fights and finds a way to come back, which in the past wasn't the case. In the past, he'd phone it in. Nowadays, I mean, this run he's been on, you love to see. Ever since the Paul Felder fight, something changed mentally with Charles Bronx Oliveira. So what I'm concerned about is what everyone's concerned about. Charles Bronx has a really underrated body lock takedown game. He really does. And he's deceptively long for the weight class. I know Max is too, but Max kind of has a bit of T-Rex arms despite being like tall. He's got a 69-inch reach. There's women on the roster with longer reaches than Max Holloway, which is kind of crazy to say. So I'm curious how it looks if Charles gets this body lock takedown, let alone takes his back, let alone maybe drops him, because Charles is that dangerous. We're talking about the guy with the most finishes in the history of this weight class. But historically speaking, I've always favored Max Holloway in this specific matchup, whether we're talking about back in 2015 when they ran it the first time or now. And the same reason that you guys do. The output over 5 rounds, the difference in the boxing prowess, I think that's why I favor him. But I'm not going to disrespect Charles Bronx Oliveira and count him out. I think he's super potent, super dangerous, and nothing would surprise me. But pure pick, I'll go Max Holloway as well, gentlemen. Co-main event of the evening in the middleweight division. We got Caio Borralho. He's 17-2. Taking on RDR Reinier de Ridder, who's 21-3. Currently, they got a Caio Borralho minus 250. The comeback on RDR is plus 210. So Reinier is 35, Caio 33. Reinier 3 inches taller, a 6'4". And Reinier has a 3-inch reach advantage. So interesting, because when I broke this down on Monday, it was actually more like minus 270 for Caio. So, line margins have tightened a bit. And I kind of think that on one hand, when you hit rock bottom the way that de Ridder did that last fight, to quote Gucci Man, ATL zone, hit rock bottom, can't go but up. I'm not saying he's going to win this fight, but I expect at least a better showing from de Ridder than that last fight. I mean, how much worse can it get, right? I feel like that was a big wake-up call. I feel like, he probably thought that, I'm just going to high roll this streak to a UFC title and, ride off into the sunset. And I think that was, you see the size. This guy used to fight at heavyweight. He's cutting weight 5 times in a year. I think it was good to take a step back, right, and get humbled a little bit. But then I know one of y'all is going to bring up, hey, that's not the first time this happened, my friend. This happened back outside the UFC too. Now, the reason I gave him a pass for that, gentlemen, is because, A, he was at heavyweight. He was in the wrong weight class. Not only has he dropped 1 weight class, since then he's dropped 2. So I was like, you know what? That's not going to happen again. and then it happened again. I'm going to predict it doesn't happen again Saturday night, but will he win this fight? Here's where I'm struggling. When I'm trying to figure out, what's De Ridder's path? Well, we think about his jiu-jitsu for MMA, which, I mean, if he takes your back, y'all remember the Fade Kevin Holland World Tour, the guy's super dangerous, but it's hard for me to picture, gentlemen, someone having some kind of ground dominance against a Damian Maia black belt, which is what Borralho is. So then I think about how's it going to go down on the feet. I'd say technically speaking, Borralho's better, but his output is kind of on the lower side. So I'm curious if De Ridder can make this an ugly fight and have some success there. Maybe not win, but perform better than these odds indicate. So that's kind of my dilemma here. Gambas, what do you think? Gambas?
Sorry, my dogs are fighting like crazy right now.
Oh, you want me to let John go first?
No, I got it. Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I feel like De Ridder is better than his last performance. I don't think this is an easy fight for Borralho. Like I do think stylistically, like he has some good advantages here, but De Ridder, I think there's like a lot of iterations of this fight where he finds ways to make this close. I went back and watched Borralho versus Makhmud Muradov. That name's probably a blast from the past, but Muradov got on top of him multiple times and held him there for like periods of time. And Muradov's a kickboxer, so it wouldn't shock me if De Ridder is able to have some grappling success here against Borralho. But at the same time, I do think Borralho potentially could have some grappling success too. It's one of those spots where like De Ridder's game's not pretty, but he's willing to kind of reach down and grab his stones and make what needs to happen. I think he probably knows that going into this, and he's one of those guys where he's okay being technically outmatched, and he knows how to make it a fight, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so I don't know that this line indicates how much of a fight this will be. Ultimately, I do favor Borralho. Like, I think he's better skill-wise. I think his game presents some challenges for De Ridder, but I'm not counting De Ridder out here, and I lean him at the current price.
I'm glad you brought up that Makhmud Muradov fight because I actually bet Makhmud Muradov in that spot.
Me too.
Decent dog odds. And going back and watching it, what specifically happened was, for whatever reason, Muradov took down Borralho. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? And he got caught in a guillotine, which, like, against a Damian Maia black belt, I mean, it's either tap out or bail and go to your back. That's literally the option, right? So he bailed, went to his back, can't get up from bottom with that kind of top control. So that I understand. But you saw, Bo Nickel try to guillotine Mr. De Ridder, which Bo's an incredible wrestler. He might not be a Damian Maia black belt, but still a serious grappler. De Ridder passed that guillotine attempt, and he pinned Bo Nickel in an MMA fight. But hey, you pinned Bo Nickel, kid. Like, that's definitely like a little, feather in his cap. Wouldn't you say, John?
Yeah, I mean, that fight was incredibly impressive from De Ridder for me. I have been all over the map on Reinier De Ridder. I watched, obviously, him kind of against that Malkin guy kind of just quit at heavyweight, to your point. Then you watch the debut with GM3, and it's like, oh my God, this dude is just a complete bum fraud. And then you watch the Nickel fight, and it's, wow, he's pretty good. Then he beats Robert Whittaker by decision, no less. And it's like, oh my God, like, how did that? Because I bet Whittaker huge there. I'm like, oh my God, how is this happening? Like, Robert Whittaker can't get out of the way of like a step in knee, like for 25 minutes. And then obviously last fight he melted down, but last fight was interesting, right? So like, I think his cardio is going to be pretty bad for his entirety in the UFC. It seems like he just doesn't manage his gas tank very well.
You talking about RDR?
Yeah. But what did impress me early in that fight is like, Brendan Allen is a really, really scrambly guy, right? Like, usually guys don't just get on top of him and hold him there. Just about everyone that does, he can initiate a scramble on. And when RDR was fresh, he just got there and kind of just crushed him for like a round, before the gas went. And like, you guys both brought up the Muradov fight, and I keep thinking in my head, I'm like, man, if he gets on top of Caio, I kind of think he's going to hold him down, Like, I sort of think that. So, I mean, obviously at plus 210, there's a lot of credence to be giving RDR there. If it's like, oh, 2 takedowns, you can win the fight conceivably. The issue for me, and why I'm not sure I'll get to a DeRitter bet, is like the athleticism gap here, I think, is huge. Caio he's longer. He's a much better technical striker. He is much faster. He's a better kicker. He's got better hands. I think he hits harder than DeRitter. I think he's much more precise. I think he's much more defensively sound. He also looks pretty good in the clinch to me. Like, I don't think DeRitter can stall him on the fence and kind of beat him up there like he did with Nickel and like he did with Whitaker for a good portions of those fights. So while I think DeRitter does have a fair amount of scope for gaining top time and winning a decision via 2 rounds of control or something along those lines, I feel like that's kind of a narrow path when it's like your point, Dan. It's like he's almost, I shouldn't say almost certainly, he's probably not going to sub Caio, though. It would be pretty surprising if he sub Caio. I think he's probably not going to knock Caio out, and I think Caio likely has most of the knockout upside in this fight. So it's like, if I think that, and I think he's kind of outclassed on the feet, it means he's got to close distance and hit clean takedowns even when he's tired against a much faster athlete who's a much better striker. It can happen. I think it can happen. I'm just not very confident in it. So I think the line may be a tad wide, but I think Caio should win this fight, and that's who I'm picking.
Featured bout in the bantamweight division, we got Rob Font, or as we like to say in Brazil, gentlemen, Hobby Font. She's 22-9, taking on Raul Rosas Jr., who's 11-1. Currently, they got it Raul Rosas minus 225. The comeback on Rob Font is plus 190. Here's where things get interesting, gentlemen. Rob Font is 38. Raul is 21, which means Rob Font is 17 years older than Raul Rosas Jr., my friends. And Rob Font, in addition to that, is going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage. Off the top of y'all's heads, is this the largest age gap we've ever seen? Definitely in recent memory, right?
It's got to be close. I maybe you had some 41 versus 24 or something like that during COVID times, but yeah.
Gambis, you know anything off the top of your head regarding that?
Nope.
Okay, but what do you know regarding your thoughts on this matchup?
It's a weird one because I went into tape expecting to like Rosas here, pretty simple breakdown of like Rosas grapples and Font's not the best defending grappling. But the more I looked, I don't love some of the looks Rosas has had in his last couple fights against competition that I wouldn't say is up to the standard of Font. Like, he lost a round to Vince Morales and he lost a round to Aori Qilang, who neither of which I think are like top level fighters. Rosas obviously super committed to the grappling. I think, he's going to get takedowns at some point here. But I wouldn't be surprised if Font's able to end up on top in scrambles. He could be the one landing on the feet and Rosas gets some takedowns and rounds end up being close. Like, ultimately, I favor Rosas because he's the one with like big top time potential. And, he could just go out there and get 10 minutes of control, 12 minutes of control against Font and look really good. But at the same time, I can't unsee some of those positions in like the Vince Morales fight or the Aori fight. I mean, man, even the Turcios fight, like, I didn't think was going super great for him before the submission. So this is another one where I think it's dog or pass.
Interesting. What do you think, John?
I haven't made a decision if I'm going to bet him or not, but I think Rosas should do fine here, personally. I understand the sentiment from Andrew, and I don't even necessarily disagree with it. But like Vince Morales, yes, Vince Morales is the ultimate like jack of everything, master of nothing. Just kind of loses fights by edges all the time. But he's got kind of like a nasty choke game. Like, you saw him kind of do it to Elijah Smith a bit. So I kind of forgive Rosas for getting into some of those deep positions there. What I will say, I was never the biggest Rosas guy, but like, you can tell his cardio, he does go a bit too hard for his own gas tank, like, no doubt about that. But he actually, I think he's got a lot of heart. Like, you've seen, like, the Aori fight looked like it was about to spiral out of control for him, and he dug deep, got the takedowns, controlled him. Same thing in the Vince fight, late in that fight. You've seen him show, that he's still willing to wrestle and go to the legs, when he's tired. And that impresses me. I also think from a physical standpoint, he's got borderline elite physicality for the other division. Like, this kid came into the UFC at 18 years old and he's like tossing people around, I only think he's getting more physical from here personally. Dude, his jiu-jitsu is pretty sick. Like, his back takes are pretty nasty. They kind of remind me of like Aljo when he was younger, plus he's like pretty big for the division. So I don't know. Yeah, if they're striking, Rob Font should win the fight, right? But like, Rob Font defends takedowns at 33% for his career. He's shown this is a guy who got controlled for 20 minutes over 25 with Corey Sandhagen on bottom, and like, Corey's a good grappler, but that's never been his MO. You know what I mean? Like, Gian Matsumoto last fight got 7 minutes of control against him, or 2 fights ago. Like, John Matsumoto, pretty good grappler, but I wouldn't say a great control grappler, certainly not on the level that Rosas is. And even with, like, let's say Rosas does slow down here and Font's able to get a bit more standing time late. I mean, he's not knocking many guys out lately, and he's getting hurt by a stiff gust of wind these days. Like, Rosas hurting him on the feet really wouldn't shock me all that much. But ultimately, to me, it's kind of meat and potatoes. I think Rosas is still getting better. He's 21 years old. He's obviously a physical freak and very, very athletic and a very good grappler, taking on a guy who's probably a fight or two from being out of the UFC, who can't defend takedowns and has shown issues at the best of times, getting up off his back against good grapplers. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of think Rosas should handle business here.
Let me take y'all back to a fight between Rob Font and Pedro Munoz in Brazil. So it starts off, Rob Font, I mean, it's target practice. He can't miss on Pedro Munoz. He's showing off his incredible hands. Then Pedro Munoz throws one overhand right, and all of a sudden, Rob just panics, shoots right into Pedro Munoz's wheelhouse, gets caught in a guillotine. You couldn't see a quicker tap. Well, I take that back because Matt Schnell taps double taps. But besides Matt Schnell, you will not see a quicker tap than Rob Font versus Pedro Munoz. And we can talk about the Sandhagen fight, but I already went on a rant on that fight in my earlier show. I just feel for my brothers and sisters in Nashville that paid their hard-earned money to watch that absolute disgrace and atrocity. I don't even want to call it a fight, whatever the hell that was. My heart goes out to y'all, because when you pay to go to see a UFC fight, you're not paying to see, a grown man hang out in between another grown man's legs. That's just not what we're here to do or see. So I'm going to reference the Pedro Munoz fight, and I'm going to say that Rob Font gets submitted for the second time in his UFC career. Listen, I completely understand y'all's concerns. Y'all saw that Christian Rodrigues fight. We all saw it. But let's bring up context. He was a fucking teenager in that fight. He went from fighting, who was his UFC debut against? Like, one of these bums?
Jay Perrin.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we literally named an award on the show after that guy because of how he acted before the fight. Like, the Jay Perrin Jobber of the Year, I literally laid minus 230 straight on Raul Rosas there, sweat-free. But obviously, Rob Font and Jay Perrin, different calibers. But also, he's 21 now. And in most cases, 21 is a big red flag. That, to me, you're a fucking kid. But this guy came in at 17. So his 21 is different than other people's 21s. And I feel like he's going to start to grow into that frame. He's catching Rob Font at an incredible time. Like you said, it's not just recently that Rob Font's been getting wobbled in a lot of fights. This has been going on for a long ass time. I'm surprised he hasn't been knocked out yet. But I think he's getting submitted Saturday night. And obviously, there's a concern if Raul Rosas just dominates with the grappling positions earlier, takes his back, blows his load, then he can't get a takedown to sniff his life, then he can't get a takedown, and then he starts getting, hands put on him. That's the concern, right?
I guess it's like it should, and I'm like, I guess just like, how wrong can you really be? Minus 225 seems like a big number, but like the macro dynamic, he's 17 years younger, taking on a guy with no chin, who's 38 years old and clearly almost done with his career. And even from a micro dynamic, it's like you have a guy that's a pretty good grappler who's going to shoot takedowns against the guy that defends takedowns at 33%. That's to me, it seems like it's got to be Raul.
I got to give Rob credit. Listen, he set back some prospects when people didn't expect him to. A lot of people didn't think that he was going to set back Kyler at the time or Matsumoto, and he did that. So, like, the guy still got some fight in him, but stylistically speaking, as long as the maturity keeps rising for Raul, I think he should take it. We'll see what happens, gentlemen.
Hey, Dan, I just looked up Jay Perrin's on a 4-fight winning streak in Cage Titans right now.
You think he's coming back to the UFC soon?
He just beat Trevin Jones. Remember him?
Yeah. So basically, like, You mean to tell me that Jay Perrin landed 2 strikes and Trevin landed 0? There you go. It wasn't a unanimous decision?
It was a unanimous decision.
I already know how that fight went. I don't even need to see it. Hey, speaking of Jay Perrin, I just recently, if y'all go to the UFC on Paramount's YouTube and you check out the interview with Raul Rosas, the interviewer asked him something about who's an opponent that's acted the most crazy with you or whatever, and he goes a little bit in depth about the way Jay Perrin acted, some things that we didn't even know about. We only knew about how Jay Perrin acted on the weigh-in scale, but on the weigh-in stage, but he mentioned how he acted backstage when the cameras weren't even on. Y'all got to check that out. It's fucking hilarious.
I will.
Now, yeah, it gets even better than we thought. He wants to be a multiple-time jobber of the year, But anyways, next up in the lightweight division, we got 2 staples of the lightweight division. We got the man with the most knockouts in UFC lightweight history, Drew Dober. He's 28-15, taking on one of the fastest men in lightweight history, Michael Johnson, who's 24-19. Currently, they got to pick him with a slight lean on Michael Johnson. He's minus 125. The comeback on Drew Dober is plus 105. So MJ getting up there, almost 40. He's 39. Drew Dober also almost 30, almost 40. Excuse me. He's 37. MJ 2 inches taller at 5'10. Let me pull that back up. That went a little bit too slow. And MJ's got a 3.5 inch reach advantage in this spot. So I was scouring the internet and I saw that I wasn't the only one that hit up Mr. Gambis to do an appearance this week, and I heard you had a take on this fight, so I'm very curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I think it's sneakily a very good fight for Michael Johnson. I know he's a couple years older than Drew Dober, but I think his recent form looks better than Drew's. I think Drew Dober, who obviously has had a ton of really fun fights in the UFC, I don't think he's what he once was. I think he was fortunate to win the Prepelec fight. Obviously, that there was a low blow in that 3rd round, and I think pretty sure Prepelec was a good sized live favorite at the time. And Johnson's faster. He's longer. I think if I remember correctly, in his last 10 fights, he's only been knocked out once. So his durability seems to be there. And it was a brutal knockout from Ferreira, if you guys remember that one a few years ago. Yeah, I think Johnson's a better minute winner. I think he's faster. I think he's longer. Even though he's older, I think he's better form. I think if anyone's going to get a couple, mixing some takedowns here, it's probably him. So, yeah, I think it's a good fight for Johnson at this point in his career.
John, what do you think?
I never thought I'd be saying in the year of our Lord 2026 and Michael Johnson we trust, but here I am. I am also on the Johnson side here. I feel they have commensurate experience and commensurate age, but the way their careers went and just how they fight is just drastically different. Michael Johnson, he's been knocked out a couple times. So is Drew Dober. I believe they've been knocked out the same amount of times in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. But, Michael Johnson, not a guy who's getting into a lot of wars, even at his best. When he was losing, typically he was getting taken down and grinded out by grapplers. Very rarely getting into, wild exchanges and eating a bunch of shots on the chin, which I don't know if I want to say he's aged gracefully. Obviously, some of the guys he's beaten in recent years have not been. And as we've seen with Daniel Zellhuber last weekend, also maybe not all that good either. So he's kind of had a bit of a soft landing here, but most of the things that made him good, I think, are mostly still there. Still very fast, very precise, good footwork, good takedown defense. Whereas Dober was kind of the opposite. Dober's whole career has been a car crash. He's been one of the most durable fighters in the UFC. He wants to come forward, get in your face, get in the pocket, and hurt you. And he's been very good at that. He had a great chin, big power, pretty good kicker, decent Muay Thai guy. But the result of it's been he's taken a ton of damage throughout his entire career here. And over the last, couple of years, it started to catch up with him. He had that McKinney fight on short notice where, he did end up persevering and winning that fight, but he was nearly murdered 3 times in the first 3 minutes of that fight. He fought Matt Frivola and got boxed up and knocked unconscious, which has not aged particularly well. Obviously, he fought Manuel Torres. I can't shit on him for getting knocked out there. Manuel Torres, big hitter. But again, this is a guy who was not going down to anybody early in his career. And now suddenly he's getting dropped pretty frequently. Obviously, he fought Gene Silva. I mean, that was a doctor stoppage and it's forgivable. But Gene Silva hurt him 3 or 4 times too. When I know Gene Silva is a demon, but he's an 145 pounder who was fighting on short notice at 155 pounds. And then obviously his last fight with Prepelec, to Andrew's point, if he doesn't go crazy and clip him going crazy at him, he probably loses that, or does not probably. He would have lost the decision in that fight. And Kyle Prepolek does not belong in the UFC. Like guys like Kyle Prepolek are the guys Michael Johnson has been beating like a drum for the last year and a half. You know what I mean? So I look at the fight and it's like Johnson's taller. He's a lot longer. He's a lot faster. He's a lot more defensively sound. He's aging a lot more gracefully than Drew is. Yeah, Dober could knock him out. I think he could potentially get calf kicks going, being at southpaw versus southpaw. But like, I've got to give like a moderate edge to Johnson here, just based on, you know, where they are in their careers and just what we're seeing physically from each of them. So I like the Johnson side up to about like minus 150 here.
Interesting. Before we talk about that, what did Esteban Ribovics do to Daniel Zellhuber's chin and confidence?
Oh my God.
Oof.
Are we sure that wasn't always a thing though? Like Trey Ogden boxed this guy up too.
Don't remind me. I laid minus 250 straight there, but it seemed like, look, he bounced back, and like even in the Prado fight had to overcome a rough first round. So it seemed like, hey, it was a debut stunt. Now you're starting to get to where you want to go and where we want to see you. But the damage he took in the Ribovics fight and then those subsequent performances, I don't recognize that guy anymore, and it's sad, but that's the fight game for you, But that being said, gentlemen, so y'all have great points about why you like Johnson. I think that in the first round, Johnson's not going to miss. I think in the first round is going to be target practice. The question is, can he severely compromise Dober or get him out of there? Because if not, speaking of Zellhuber, who had back-to-back opponents in Bobby Green and Mr. Johnson, I could see a similar situation like that Bobby Green fight where Bobby Green can't miss in round one, and then speed is the first thing to go, but not necessarily in the first round, in MJ's case, but maybe as the fight starts to develop a little bit, like you saw against Emmett or Carlos Diego Ferreira. Like, what are the chances Dober can take that ass whooping up front, and then second or third round, extend his record for most knockouts in UFC lightweight history? Sorry, you're muted, brother.
I could definitely see it. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he knocks Johnson out at all.
Yeah, no, I feel where y'all are coming from, and it doesn't always feel good to be on the opposite side of guys like this. But I'm not planting my flag as far as like money goes on this one. I'm probably just gonna sit back and watch two like legends of hardcore fans, go at it, and two staples of the lightweight division. But I'm gonna come out here and pick the underdog, man. It's hard for me to lay chalk on a 40-year-old Johnson, but I get where y'all are coming from. Dober's current form, obviously, he's on the decline too. So let's see what happens, boys. It should be interesting. Now, before we move on, got to give a quick shout out to Truth Hurts, because he hooked up a $4.99 donation. Yo, Dan, that was a great take you had last week on the main event with Kavanaugh, and I came up based on your read. Good shit. Appreciate you, man. Glad you were able to cash in on that. Yeah, Lone Kavanaugh. Man, I got some ridiculous comments for picking that one, man. I was really happy it worked out. And I'm also happy to see the flyweight division like really starting to usher in a new guard and usher out the old guard. The only thing I don't like, the rankings came out today, and some genius had Albazi ranked ahead of Moreno, which, like, did you not just see Moreno not just beat him, put a literal shit-kicking clinic on him? Like, how the hell could you even come to the conclusion that Albazi could be ranked ahead of Moreno? That was disgusting to me.
That is absolutely wild, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I didn't even see that.
I mean, are we sure Albazi should be ranked?
Yeah. I mean, like, he got the lucky win over Kai Kara France, and no matter what, when you get that win on your resume of like a top 5 guy, you're only going to get those big fights after that. So he kind of is almost like been grandfathered into the rankings when he doesn't deserve to be. Look, I'm not saying he's not a top 15 guy, but top 10 or top 5, give me a fucking break, And maybe he's not a top 15 guy. Who you got? Albazi, Brunno, Silva.
Close fight. I say this as someone who bet Albazi against Horiguchi. It was a terrible bet. He produced 0 offense in that entire fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, y'all are saying some funny shit in the comments about certain things about people that Dober's beaten, but he's undefeated in those matches. But let's see if that continues, guys. But y'all are killing me. But hey, speaking of rematches, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Gregory Hobocop Rodrigues, he's 18-6, taking on Brunno Hulk Ferreira, who's 15-2. Currently, they got it. Gregory Hobocop minus 200. The comeback on the Hulk is plus 170. Gregory 34 allegedly. Brunno 33. Hobocop quite a bit taller at 6'3". He's got a 3-inch reach advantage to 75 inches of reach. Sean Stargary, and I got to hear your take on this one, because not only do I want to know what you think about the rematch, but what do you think about the result of the first fight and their subsequent fights since then?
Well, the first fight, I laid minus 250 on Gregory Rodrigues and wanted to put my head in a blender at the end of the fight. The subsequent fights since, I kind of was of the mindset of Bruno Ferreira that, like, this guy didn't really, like, he was just all power, like, no skill. And then as he's continued to fight, I've kind of just gotten completely on board the bandwagon. Like, it doesn't look pretty a lot of the times, but, like, the dude does a really good job getting in and out, not taking damage. He hits like a ton of bricks, and he's got some like sneaky good jiu-jitsu too. I mean, obviously he just beat Marvin Vettori, beat Armin Petrosian. You know, he's just destroyed Phil Hawes, but I mean, I guess everybody that can punch destroys Phil Hawes these days, but like that's neither here nor there. I actually like Bruno's game, and obviously RoboCop's he's one of the best 10 to 15 fighters at middleweight, right? I mean, he marches forward, he's a complete marauder, like he's just a predator who just wants to do damage to you and kill or be killed, for lack of a better word.
And real quick, not to cut you off, but when you say kill, you literally do mean kill.
Yes,
Ask Jack Hermanson.
Yes.
And like, I mean, no, please go ahead.
He just seems so violent. Like, imagine standing in front of that man. Like,
imagine standing in front of him in 10 years when he's taking more shots to the head too.
It's crazy. I mean, obviously he's a very, very good fighter, and like of the two, I certainly think RoboCop is the more skilled. He's obviously the more credentialed jiu-jitsu player. I think he's a bit better of a wrestler. I think he's the much cleaner, like, Thai striker. But I don't know. I kind of think it's a close fight. Like, you know, the one thing from that first fight that I noticed, first of all, we all know RoboCop. Everybody says it every fight. Man, what if Gregory goes to the grappling in this fight? Like, guys, it's not happening. Maybe he'll attempt a takedown or two, but it's never going to be plan A for him. It's just not. Like, he's shown that enough times that it's not going to happen. But they did have a couple grappling exchanges in their first fight, and like Brunno actually kind of held his own surprisingly well early in that fight. Now I think if he gets on top of Brunno while he's tired, he can probably do what he wants to him, kind of similar to what Abus did later in the fight. But while he's fresh, Bruno's pretty explosive and hard to hold down. So like I think they're going to swing a fair amount. And I mean, obviously Gregory can win that fight, and I think you probably even favor him in that fight. But you know, if there's one weakness in his game, you know, he has been hurt a bunch of times. He's been knocked out a fair amount of times, and he's fighting a guy who there's at least an argument is the heaviest hitter in the division, you know, or one, at the bare minimum, one of them. And Brunno has shown that he also is kind of not afraid of the style that Gregory brings, which also leads me to believe that, kind of similar to their first fight, this could be a lot of like patty cake early on, with both of them kind of trying to find the right spots here. But yeah, ultimately, I think it's going to be a pretty close fight. I lean the Gregory side, like, ever so slightly, but I think Bruno's got a lot of scope for knocking him out again here. And I also could honestly see something similar-ish to the Vettori fight, where like their power kind of spooks each other off, and you kind of have like a tepid back and forth fight. So at the price, I lean Brunno. To win, I think I lean Gregory ever so slightly.
Gambas, talk to me, because I'm biased towards Brunno. You know, cashed a nice dog bet for me against Marvin, which, I mean, I cashed 2 dog bets against Marvin last year. Who was the other? It was Dolidze, right? Yeah, Dolidze and Brunno. And then Hobocop really pissed me off with that follow-up shot against Hermanson. Listen, if Hermanson was talking shit before the fact, or like talking about the guy's family, or then I'm totally cool with a follow-up. You know what I'm saying? Like Bisping versus Henderson the first time. Like, Bisping talked so much shit it was UFC 100 that I was cool with Hendo throwing that follow-up. Even Bisping was like, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all understood. But like Jack Hermanson is literally like, shake your hand, super the nicest guy. And it's like, one thing when the guy's not actually knocked out and like you have to throw the follow-up, but this dude was like stiff, Tin Manning, convulsing on the canvas, and you still throw that follow-up punch, and then you see what's happened to Jack since then. It's just like, bro, like, fuck that. But then again, you can't let that stuff affect your judgment regarding picking fights. So talk to me, Gambas. Who you got?
Yeah, I expect this to be a close fight. I'll continue my theme here. I think I've like said I underdog or pass in every fight so far, or at least most of them. But yeah, I just expect this to be close. I mean, I don't take the first fight into like I don't put too much weight on it. It was a pretty quick fight. Showed a glimpse that it's probably going to be relatively close. To John's point about the Rodrigues grappling thing, like I've said that for a few fights now, where it's like, oh, Rodrigues, guys, he's not going to come out grappling.
The Petrosian fight, like
yeah, it's a perfect example. Even like Kopylov, like he won striking, but Kopilov's big deficiency is in grappling, and he didn't even really try. And Ferreira's a capable grappler. Like he's not a bad grappler himself. I just expect this to be a close fight. I think either guy could get a knockout, and I think if it goes 15, I think it could be pretty close. So to me, like Ferreira at this price is kind of a no-brainer.
I'm with you on that as well, man. Obviously rematches always go differently compared to how the first fight went. Usually, not always. I mean, we saw Volk and Diego, similar result as the first time, but most of the time it's kind of different. But at the end of the day, we're gamblers, and the price, it doesn't indicate, I just think it should be a lot closer. I'm not saying it should be a pick 'em. I'd favor Rodrigues minus 150 or so, but minus 200, I'm having hesitation with, because Brunno's got a very tough style to deal with. He's got a unique body type for the weight class, and he's someone that's really tough to prepare for. He's listed at 5'10". He ain't no 5'10". He's 5'8", by the way. This guy's a fire hydrant. He's a refrigerator, and he's just like super tough to deal with. But Rodrigues, one of the hardest hitters, a marauder, one of the bigger middleweights. Someone's hitting the deck, in my opinion. I'm gonna pick Brunno as well, man. I mean, look, the numbers got me. I gotta admit, but yeah, I'll go Brunno here. Now, here's where things get interesting. Featured prelim in the bantamweight division, we got the former champion Cody Garbrandt, or as we like to say in Brazil, gentlemen, Cody Garbrandt. He's 14-7, taking on Long Xiao, who's 27-10. Currently, they got it. The guy that's 1-2 in the UFC is minus 160 over the former champion, who's plus 140. Cody is 7 years older at 34, both men 5'8". Long Xiao has a 4.5-inch reach advantage at 70 inches of reach. So what do y'all think happened to Cody? I mean, on one hand, I understand he won the belt young, but more often than not, when you reach the mountaintop, there's nowhere to go but down. So despite him losing the belt at a young age, I can see why he hasn't been the same. But then there's also been talks about back surgeries, back injections in Europe, the chin issues, which isn't something that TJ Dillashaw caused. I know y'all remember because y'all been around. Y'all remember that amateur knockout loss that Cody Garbrandt took?
Stiff.
Right. What was the dude's name? Like Jarrell Hodges or something?
Yeah, Jarrell Hodges. And he put him completely unconscious.
Is that dude doing his thing now, by the way? I heard a rumor. I'm not sure that's true or not, but I
think he's on the regionals, I'm pretty sure, but I don't think he's anything special. Yeah.
Okay. If anyone knows about Jarrell Hodges, what he's been up to, let us know, because he'll always have a highlight reel KO over Cody Garbrandt. But what do y'all think about this Long Xiao cat? You think that we're at the point where even a dude like this could come out here and knock out Garbrandt? Because I thought Garbrandt was so done that I bet on a dude like Trevin Jones against them. And it was an ugly ass fight. All Trevin needed to do was throw 2 more strikes. You win that fight, and he failed to do so. And then in Atlanta recently, I saw Garbrandt fight Ione. And listen, Ione's a stud, but it's like round 1, Garbrandt's doing his thing. Garbrandt's like dancing in there and shit in round 2 and 3. It's like, whoa, what happened, man? So which one of y'all's got a more passionate take about this?
I have a pretty passionate take about
it. Let's go.
I like the Xiao side, to be honest with you. I actually just noticed it moved 15 cents, but I know that seems like, when you look at Long Xiao's tape, potentially not the most intelligent take in the world. He's fighting a former champion, who is certainly a better striker with better hands than him, and more power. But so I had to take, I just sort of think Cody, I mean, look, we've heard all the injury stuff that you mentioned, the chin issues have been there, but the cardio stuff just makes me think he's not really taking his career particularly seriously. Like he used to have fine 5-round cardio, you know what I mean? And now it's just like, Trevin Jones, he basically didn't throw a strike for 2 rounds and was totally gassed out in round 3 and lost round 3 of that fight. Same deal with Ione. I mean, he won round 1, but it was a fairly tepid round. And to compound things with him, it's like, even when he's fresh, he just doesn't produce a lot of offense. You know what I mean? Like the Ione fight was at distance for 12 minutes and he landed, I think, 25 significant strikes. That you just can't win fights like that. If you're not getting to top position and that's how you're going to fight, and you have bad cardio to boot, it's very hard to win fights unless you're converting knockouts. And I think Cody Garbrandt is capable of converting a knockout here. I think round one, and this is kind of what I'm struggling with. Do I want to bet like minus 160 Long Jiao Pri, or just wait till Cody inevitably like puts him on skates once in round one and wait in between rounds? But like, I do think Cody should have some success early. He's faster. He's the better striker. He's obviously got one punch KO power while he's fresh. But like Long Jiao, I don't think he's great. He's like a decent counter grappler, but he pushes a heavy pace, man. And he seems pretty durable. And like, he's not, he fought Christian Quinones on Contender Series, and Quinones was kind of playing pinball with his head early, but he just kept coming at him. And if he does that and he gets through the first round here, I feel like pretty confident that Garbrandt's going to melt and get tired down the stretch of this fight. And also, just to boot, it's like, couldn't he just knock Garbrandt out in the first round? Like, I don't think he's got huge hands, but like, we've seen Garbrandt hurt plenty of times at this point. So like, Long Jiao, like, he's in his prime, he's in his late 20s. Cody's, he's been to the mountaintop and back. He's clearly washed. Yeah, I mean, he could knock him out and make me look really stupid. Like, if I'm wrong, I'm going to look like an idiot, because it's probably going to be Cody putting up a highlight reel finish. But I just don't trust this guy to put up enough offense over 15 minutes. I don't trust his chin. I don't trust his cardio past the round. So give me the guy who's shown to be pretty durable, pushes a heavy pace, and has great cardio. I lean Long Jiao.
A little bit of trivia for y'all. Cody Garbrandt's been in the UFC since 2015. He's been the 5-round distance more than once, against Dominic Cruz. He actually dethroned Dominic Cruz. He's been the 5-round distance against Rob Font. So he's been in the UFC over 10 years, multiple 5-round fights. What's the most amount of strikes he's ever landed in a fight? Over or under 68.5 strikes?
Under.
Correct.
Because I'm pretty sure he was like 63 against Cruz, right? Over 5. It was something like that.
Yeah, like it was like 68 versus Cruz and 63 versus Font or something like that. And that's literally those. And you want to know something about that? Those are obviously painfully low numbers, but those are anomalies for Cody Garbrandt, because normally he's landing like 28 strikes in 3 rounds, guys.
I think he had like 20 when he knocked out what's his name? My God, a Sun Sao.
Yeah. Man, that was a beautiful. I mean, it wasn't beautiful by the book.
It was
sick. But it was a sick KO. Yeah. I mean, you don't show that to a boxing coach, but you show that to your friends for sure. But Andrew, talk to me, man, because at the beginning of the week, I was like, oh, former champions Dog Money versus, who the fuck is this guy? But now I'm kind of like, I wouldn't be surprised if Garbrandt lost to a random no name that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. It's a tough one. Like, I too see the Garbrandt cardio thing. For me, that's like the biggest pause, right? Because it's weird that a 135 pounder who's literally been the champion of the world has such bad cardio issues. Like, it's just, you don't really see it happen. Maybe, a sloppy heavyweight, like they throw everything into their punches and they're tired, but it's like, Cody's, to your guys' point, he's not throwing a ton of strikes. So why he's 135 pounds? Why is he getting so tired in these recent fights? He looked good against Barcelos in round 1. Barcelos is a stud, and I'm pretty confident Barcelos would beat this guy up pretty good. But the cardio thing to me is the big concern. I still, it would be, I'll keep the trend going here. I still think it would be Cody or pass, because I do think he's a better fighter. Cody has had some, I don't fault him too much for the Barcelos fight. Like, the gas tank thing was not ideal, but Barcelos is really good. He lost 29-28, like, whatever. Like, Barcelos would beat this guy too. Figueiredo, former champ, Cody was competing there before getting submitted. It's really more so the fights that he won against, like, Kelleher and Jones. Like, I bet both Kelleher and Jones against him. And Jones, to your point earlier, if he threw like 2 more strikes, he would have won. And Jones is losing to Jay Parent on the regional scene now. And then you look at the Kelleher fight.
Sorry,
Kelleher
that was too good. Sorry.
Kelleher was leg kicking him at will, and Garbrandt had Garbrandt ended up knocking him out like 4 minutes into the fight. But before that, I was feeling really good about Kelleher there. Like, he was leg kicking, Garbrandt had no answer. It's a really weird career, honestly. Like, you started this off by asking what happened to him, and I feel like it's probably a combination of 2 things. I think the confidence after losing to Dillashaw probably was never the same. I also wonder if I hate saying it like this because like it's gonna come off worse than I intended, but like maybe he was never that good. Maybe he had a really good performance against Cruz. Maybe
Just
Cruz,
high rolled it.
yeah, maybe Cruz was like a reasonable stylistic matchup because he doesn't have like huge knockout power to expose some of Cody's tendencies. But yeah, other than that, it's like a lot of early knockouts, like Thomas Almeida, Takeya Mizugaki, and then the Cruz. Like he got put in that Cruz fight really early in his career, won the fight, obviously great performance. But after that, it was like loss, 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 a Sunsow knockout, loss, loss. Maybe he was just never that great. I don't know. I mean, so I think it's maybe he was a little overrated at the time, plus the confidence issue. But yeah, I mean, all that being said, like again, not intending to sound disrespectful here, like this long guy is not very good. Like he's just not, like he's one of those guys that like maybe he'll be like a 500 level UFC fighter. Like he's 1-2 and he's fought like 3 road UFC guys. I don't know, man. There's just like there's a lot of negatives on both sides. I don't have too many great things to say about either, but yeah, for sake of having to choose someone here, I'll say that Cody gets it done.
True or false? Cody's 3-7 in his last 10.
That's probably true. Let me see if I can name them really quick. It would be the Jones, Kelleher, and a Sunsow.
Yep, that's it.
That's crazy.
So, you know how we mentioned how Trevin Jones was a couple punches away from winning that fight, and to your point, Gambas, Kelleher was a couple calf kicks away from immobilizing him. And to build off that point, if you watch the Pedro Munoz fight, a lot of people wonder why Garbrandt went full what in that fight, and it wasn't because he just randomly did that. It was because he was getting chopped down from those calf kicks, and he had to make a point. He was 1 or 2 calf kicks away from being immobilized. It was like, all right, we got to say F it and go, and he did that, and his chin obviously can't hold up. But before we move on, John, obviously the numbers indicate that Long Zhao fights at maybe double the pace as Garbrandt, but do you see enough power in his hands to compromise him? And do you see a calf kick attack that could possibly give him issues, considering that Cody does stand pretty firm on that front leg?
I don't think he's that great a kicker. I mean, I don't think he's got that much power either, but I also am not sure how much it really takes, especially because something I think I noticed with Cody a long time ago, just that when he exchanges, he just like his chin's wide open up in the air, like right on the center line, and his hands are down like every time, so he just puts himself in bad places. I do trust that Xiao is gonna try to grapple him, clinch him up and whatnot, and if the cardio we've seen over the last 5 fights is still the same here, I trust if he gets through a round, Cody's probably going to slow down fairly precipitously,
And last but not least, Perrin versus Garbrandt. Who y'all got?
That one I'll side with Cody on. And who knows? Maybe it happens. They brought Chris Moutinho back. Why not Jay Perrin?
Oh, you're thinking UFC, not NFC.
Fair enough.
Now, gentlemen, moving on in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Donte Johnson. He's 7-0, taking on Cody Brundage, who's 11-8-1, but it's really more like 9-10 because a couple of his wins he actually got knocked out in. Currently, they got a Donte minus 650. The comeback on Brundage is plus 460. Brundage, 4 years older at 31. I don't really think Dante's 5'8". I think he's maybe 5'10" to 6 feet, around there. And then Dante's got a 2-inch reach advantage at 74 inches of reach. Bringing Brundage back quickly after that last stoppage loss. And I just feel like all of Brundage's luck has run out. There's only so many times you can get knocked out and they call you the winner, or you get knocked out and they call it a no contest. I feel like now you're just going to get knocked out and it's going to be a straight up L like it should be, John,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And also, I think the most concerning thing is that the Roaston fight was 3 weeks ago? It was something like that, right? Like that was pretty ugly. It's funny. I was texting Andrew earlier this week and I was like, man, if you gave me just, like the NBA pastel of an MMA fighter and I got to watch their tape and didn't know it was Cody Brundage, I'd be all over them at plus 450 against Donte Johnson, because like I'm really not sold on like I shouldn't say on him not being a prospect. He's young and he's obviously athletic, right? So like he can certainly develop into something, but his skill level seems extraordinarily raw to me, both on the feet and in the grappling. And raw enough that someone with Brundage's theoretical skill set can theoretically
experience.
Can expose, the problem is just like, first of all, he got knocked out 3 weeks ago. Second of all, it's like, at this point, unless there is zero stopping power in front of him, like, with the Mechanical fight, which he still found a way to lose, by the way, but unless there's literally zero stopping power in front of him, the first time he runs into adversity, he's going to just fold up the tent, that's just the way it is. Like, I think it's possible he could have a run like where he doesn't fold up the tent, or not where he doesn't fold up the tent, but where he doesn't face much adversity and wins. You kind of saw that with the Mansour fight, although he didn't win, but like, he did pretty well with Malik for, 2 rounds. He was pretty competitive, didn't get hurt badly, kind of hung in there. And I could see that here. I could potentially see him having some grappling success. So it's like all of that stuff combined with like the experience. It's just like, it makes me want to lean the Brundage side at the price here. But obviously, I do think he's going to run into issues more often than not. And like, I still can't unsee in my head the fact that this guy got the worst fighter in the division handed to him on a platter in Cedric Dumas and found a way to spend 11 minutes underneath him in a 15-minute fight and lose a unanimous decision. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's theoretically value on Brundage because I think Johnson's very, very raw and not really quite ready for this level. But I don't really think I'm going to be there.
Yeah, you see a lot. Shout out to my boy Devontae Sewell. He said Jason House manages both of them. That's fucked up. The man just got knocked out. But yeah, you see a lot
That's
of
interesting. That's pretty interesting.
You see a lot of Iridium versus Iridium matchups. Break it down with the grinder. So this is my boy Devontae Sewell. Y'all should check out his fight with Hyder Emil. Fucking unbelievable, just chaotic war. I don't remember if it was LFA or I think it was LFA, right? Yeah. And dude, like y'all got to check out that fight. So, and I think my boy Devontae's got an NFC main event coming up. You fighting Austin Coleman, or did that fight already happen? I feel like I saw a poster for that. And if that's the case, I'm glad you're getting back in there, my man. But yeah, regarding this fight, I mean, you're right. Johnson is green, but he's had less than 10 pro fights. He's just a kid. He's getting his feet wet. But I like the fact that he's dropping from heavyweight, not just to 205, but to 185, finally in the proper weight class. He's got the physical tools. I mean, the sky's the limit. And you're taking on the most mentally weak guy on the roster who's coming off a knockout loss a couple of weeks ago. And, they say that the fight in Atlanta was a decision and a no contest. Bro, Mansour knocked him out. I don't know why Mansour waited until the 3rd round to let his hands go. People have certain speculations about that. But as far as I'm concerned, that was a stoppage loss too. And Gambis, I think Saturday night, there's going to be another one.
I have not taped this fight, so I'm not qualified to talk about it. So I'm going to take a pass here.
Okay, so this guy might have a little something up his sleeve, huh?
No, I just haven't got around to it yet.
Okay, got you. Now moving on. Next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between the debutant Alberto Montes, he's 10-1, taking on Ricky Turcios, who's 12-5. Currently, they got it Montes minus 185. The comeback on Turcios is plus 160. Turcios a year older at 32, 2 inches taller at 5'9", and a 2-inch reach advantage at 71 inches of reach. So I like the improvements Montes has made. When he first started off on his regional scene, he had kind of like this karate style, the wide hands, the blitz, the in and out. And I feel like he's kind of gotten slightly away from that. Don't get me wrong. Like that's still going to always be his base, but like, I feel like he's kind of tightened up his MMA striking. And then don't sleep on his ability to dangle off people's necks too. And Turcios, I got to admit, I'm kind of biased against him. Just like when you're going out there and you're making sounds against Zahabi and stomping the ground and doing all these things, I just like can't get behind stuff like that. So by default, I got to go with Montes, but I need y'all to talk to me about this. Like, am I just being biased? Is there actually an edge on the dog, or like, should we just go ahead? And don't forget, Turcios is moving up to featherweight for this one, Gambis. So what do you think, my friend?
Same thing as last fight. Those two I haven't had a chance to
Targaryen, take it away.
I'm good for.
Well, as you guys may or may not know, I am a sucker for losing money on Ricky Turcios as an underdog. How come?
I just always,
I really like his I shouldn't say I like his style so much. Like I talked all about how much I hated how little offense Garbrandt produces. I love how much offense Ricky tends to produce. You know, even when guys are grappling him, he's throwing a ton of strikes, he's scrambling, he's initiating. Like the dude fought Bernardo Sopai, and like until Sopai hurt him in round 3, he was kind of starting to put it on him just from the sheer pace that he pushes. So like I think Ricky is more than the sum of his parts, right? He's not a great athlete, but he's a really good scrambler. He seems to have pretty good durability despite being like kind of a weenie. And he just, you know, he's got great cardio and he's at a high work rate. So like I am generally higher than the market on Ricky Turcios. I think the weird thing, so my biggest question with this fight and Alberto Montes is his contenders fight was 2 years ago. It was in 2024. And the Montes I saw on Contender Series, I agree with you, Dan, that like there were clear improvements from, you know, kind of earlier in his regional career, but I still felt there were a lot of holes there. Like if his plan is just going to come out here and try to like, you know, grapple Turcios, he'll probably get him down a few times, but like, I don't think he's just going to grapple him and go right to an anaconda and submit him. That would like really, really shock me. And I think it would be a quick path to getting himself tired and, you know, entering the Ricky Turcios universe, if you know what I mean. You know, now on the other hand,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But his striking, I think he's got the more potent hands. I think he has the more potent kicks. You know, I think he's a bit more clever technically. The problem is like, he's also very, very hittable himself. And I don't think he's really got big power, which means if he can't get Ricky off him, he's going to be coming forward nonstop in this fight. And so like, just from the tape that I'm seeing here, I think I make it about an even fight. I even lean Turcios a bit just because I feel like Montes' lack of defense and the fact that he's so early submission heavy throughout his career is just not really a great recipe for beating Ricky. But he's also 30 years old. He spent the last 2 years at the Goat Shed. Like, I have to imagine, you know, we were seeing improvements leading into that Contender Series fight. And the truth of the matter is he's a much better athlete who does hit harder and just a much more dangerous fighter than Ricky Turcios is. So it's like, it wouldn't take all that much improvement wise to make this price entirely justified in my mind. And I do think you have to project some improvement. So I haven't made a final decision on it. Maybe looking at an over, because I really don't think either guy's going to finish this fight. Honestly, that's like my gut instinct is this fight's going to go long. But yeah, I like Turcios off the tape, but I do suspect that Montes has probably made improvements. And I do think you get to price some of those in. And like the bar to clear to beat Ricky Turcios is not really all that high.
And we've never seen him at featherweight, have we?
No.
Yeah, because you supposed to fight Smotherman a few months ago in January.
And he has taken some damage lately, honestly. He took a bunch against Sopai in his last fight.
Sopai gave him a tour of the octagon straight up.
Sopai's good though, man. He's really good, in my opinion.
All right, gentlemen. Moving on. We got an absolute banger in the flyweight division. We got Cody Durden fighting for his career. He's 17-9-1, taking on Tumendemberel, who's 9-1. Currently, they got a Tumendemberel -145. The comeback on Cody Durden is +125. So Durden, 7 years older at 34. Both men 5'7". Tumendemberel has a 4-inch reach advantage in this spot. Gambis, very, very curious to hear what you think about this flyweight banger.
Yeah, I'm taking Durden here. I didn't realize I liked every underdog or was picking every underdog until we started talking, but I just feel like this is stylistically a really good fight for him. Like, I know he's on a bit of a losing streak, but it's to Josh Van, Jose Ochoa, and Alan Nascimento, who I would all favor very comfortably against Tumendemberel. Yeah, I feel like Cody's style is made to do well in a fight like this. I expect him to have grappling success early. Carlos Hernandez took Tumendemberel down a bunch of times. Keyram or whatever the guy's name is on Road to UFC took him down, a half dozen times. And Cody Durden's the kind of guy where you know what you're getting. Like, he's not going to go in there with some crazy game plan. Like, he basically sprints from the opening bell, looks for takedowns, looks for pressure. Like, he's done the same thing his entire UFC career. And yeah, I think he's a better fighter than Tumendemberel. Big concern for me would be like the cardio factor because he does sprint so hard. Could be one of those situations where like he's dominating for 8 minutes and you're kind of holding your breath the rest of the way. But I think he's still capable of winning a fight like this. Like, this is not Josh Van. This is not Al Nascimento. And like, it's not like he went out there and embarrassed himself against Nascimento either. Like,
not at all. He looked great in that fight, actually.
Yeah, and no, I guess just the common theme is the cardio factor due to the fact that he sprints and I expect him to do that here. I think it's a more forgiving matchup than the last few he's had.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue. He's a balls to the wall, kill or be killed fighter. And it's like, bro, you have a plaque on your wall that says you can come out here and wrestle these guys, but he truly wants to be the Justin Gaethje of the flyweight division. So, John, what do you think?
Yeah, so what you just said is kind of what makes, like, I bet Cody a ton throughout his career. I've always felt like he's been a bit underrated by the market. But I do wonder, and I do wonder whether or not he's a flyweight. Yeah, and I wonder whether or not Father Time is catching up with him a little bit at 34. Because, like, I'm not saying his cardio has always been perfect, but he's had some inconsistent cardio performances, right? Like, he got tired against Charles Johnson, but he was still, taking him down, taking his back late in that fight.
Hey, 30-27 times 3.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Jake Hadley too, man. He did great in the third round of that fight, What I worry about it though is, like, I don't care about the Ochoa fight. I don't really care about the Nascimento fight. Those guys, he wasn't going to come out there and like wreck them grappling, and so I give him like a pass there. It's funny because even though he's the champ, the fight that really kind of like sticks in my head is the Van fight, because I didn't think, he had the right approach in that fight, which was come out and I'm going to grapple this guy. And like, he did pretty well with it. But like the way he just seemed to go from like full gas tank to like zero so quickly, I was like, oh my God, like,
body shots, win the first baby. Body shots.
Yeah. So like, I worry about that. And then I worry about just like, he's taken, a lot of shots lately. I'm like, is his durability still going to hold up? And like Tumendemberel, I see the same things Andrew sees on the tape, where it's like, I do think this guy is a mark on the ground to be had. And honestly, if it played out similar to I remember, betting Cody as a dog against Carlos Mota, where it was just like, that was about as free as it gets, just got to half guard and just able to sit there for 15 minutes. I could see that happening here. My concern is Tumendemberel's 27. It seems like he's been making improvements. Like, I thought his defensive grappling looked a lot better in his last road fight. Now, the guy he fought there is a Saturnario or whatever his name is a much, much, much lower level grappler than Cody Durden. So I don't really want to give him too much credit for that. But he also has got pretty good power in his hands, like serious power. So like, I don't know. I'm kind of torn because I do intuitively, I think Cody's the side. At the same time, I worry about his age for the flyweight division. I worry about his cardio. And this other kid looks like he's like a decent athlete with like big power. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Cody's just fought such a higher level of competition. It's kind of hard to ignore. You know what I mean? Probably going to be a pass for me. Curious what you think, Dan. Obviously, you're probably the closest this fight of the group.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm obviously super biased. Cody's a friend of mine, so I'm going to pick him in every fight. But we all know the concerns here. Like y'all already mentioned, he goes balls to the wall. He's a killer be killed fighter. And it's like, dude, sometimes why not just take a step back? You're dominating these guys. You don't have to take it up another notch. Like, let's just like chill out a little bit. And you're allowed to pick people apart. You're allowed to lay on people. Like, I feel like he just wants to be exciting so badly, but yeah,
his fights are exciting.
Yeah, they are. I mean, and he'll take fights on a week notice more than once. The Schnell fight was on a week notice. The Nascimento fight was on a week notice. I know there was another one that was also on a week notice. So, I mean, he's a fighter's fighter, man. Like, and he's also a great guy behind the scenes too. I love this guy. But Tumendemberel, I like him too. Listen, he's green, but I like the fact that he's, a finisher. I like the fact that he calls himself the art of KO, and most of his wins are actually submissions, but he's hurting these guys before he's submitting them for the most part. And I also agree with y'all that, now that Tumendemberel is like in the States and he's like out his comfort zone, training with the right people, that you're probably going to be seeing a better version of him every single time. So maybe he is catching Durden at an incredible time. But that being said, Durden has truly crushed the grapes. So I'm praying that Saturday night he drinks the wine. And yeah, you know who I'm rooting for. So let's fucking go, Cody Durden. Now, next up, also in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Sumudaerji, he's 18-7, take on Jesus Aguilar, who's 12-3. Currently, they got it Sumudaerji minus 240. The comeback on Jesus Aguilar is plus 205. Su is 30. Jesus is 29. Jesus 4 inches shorter at 5'4". But check it out. He's got a 9.5 inch reach disadvantage at 62.5 inches of reach. So goddamn. But I feel like he's kind of used to this kind of dynamic. He's always going to be the shorter guy. He's always going to have the smaller reach. This dude, Jesus Aguilar, he might not be the most technical guy in the world. He might not be the best athlete, but this is a little dude with big balls. That's just the bottom line. The way he fights definitely represents that, man. I mean, that fight with Gurule, man, like, I was impressed. I took Gurule there, and like he shoved it. I mean, he showed me something there. And Gurule, interestingly enough, kind of like someone we were talking about. Was it last week where certain guys, they'll look good on their regional scene, but for whatever reason, they just can't put it together under the bright lights of the UFC's octagon. And I think he might fall into that category where like they dominate their contender series fight, but just for whatever reason, they can't put it together under the bright lights. Oh yeah. I was going to talk about in a couple fights from now, that Diyar guy, Nurgozhay, he's another one of those. Like I didn't think he looked bad at all on his regionals, and then you just can't put it together in the UFC. And another example is y'all remember Japanese Connor?
Oh, do I remember?
Yeah, do I remember? Yeah. Mr. Kinoshita, like, bro, like this dude was killing guys on his regional. Like his only loss was because he stomped the guy out and they DQ'd him, and then he had the most disgusting pull counter KO on contender series, and then they give him Fugit for the debut. We're like, all right, here we go, baby. And it's like, whoa, like, wait, who's this? This isn't the guy I scouted. And I feel like I've said similar things about Gurule and Diyar Nurgozhay and Japanese Connor, but I digress. What do y'all think about this matchup? Because on paper, yeah, sure, Su so much longer, technical striker, pick him apart, keep him on the outside. But if Jesus Aguilar dangles off this neck, you will see a tap. I'm pretty confident in that, Gambas.
Yeah, obviously, a lot of advantages here for Su. Better striker, way longer, better technically. But Aguilar's a dog. Like, I just, for whatever reason, when I picture this fight, I feel like Aguilar is going to make Su uncomfortable at times. Like, he's going to be in his face. He's going to be shooting. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be taking Su down and holding him there. Like, but I do think he's going to make this a nitty-gritty fight, and I don't think it's going to be one where Su just goes out there and styles on him. Like, Su could catch him, like I said, better striker, cleaner, and like he probably still does win, but I do feel like Aguilar is going to give him problems at times in this fight.
Dude, I so agree. I mean, I thought that Su was going to kill Matt Schnell. I thought that Su was going to kill Mitch Raposo. Like, yeah. Bro, he gets finished by Matt Schnell, and people are going to be like, oh, but that was a prime Matt Schnell. I don't give a fuck. Matt Schnell still had no chin in his prime. That was like many fights removed from when I was in attendance in Nashville when this little dude, Hector Sandoval, 2-inch hammer fist KO'd Matt Schnell. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, Su gets finished by Matt Schnell, goes to a split decision with Mitch Raposo. I think Jesus can compete with him straight up. I think he can compete with him. Like Gambas said, I think he can make him uncomfortable. Obviously at range, 9.5 inch reach disadvantage, he could get picked apart, but like, man, don't forget about some of the bad looks you've seen from Su on the mat. And we're talking about a minus 240 price tag. So I would proceed with caution. People saying this is going to be the easiest, you're just going to pick them apart like it's no one's business. If it happens, props to y'all. But I personally think there's a dog or pass situation. I'm actually picked the dog outright. I'm going to say he comes out here and dangles off Su's neck and taps him out with a guillotine.
Yeah, I laid minus 214 on Su. I will say, with respect to the Raposo fight, Su outlanded the man 44-9. The fact that was a split decision was atrocious.
Speaking of other atrocities, how did Mitch Raposo get a split with Andre Lima too?
Dude, Mitch Raposo, magic powers, man. But like, that's actually kind of more or less where I see like, so like, hey, I love Jesus as a fighter for like the same reason I mentioned I like Ricky Turcios. Jesus is way more than the sum of his parts. He's a little guy with short reach who's not a particularly sound technical striker. I don't think he's a particularly good grappler. He just tries really, really hard at it, and he's made the most of that. I will say to the Gurule point, I was with you, Dan. I laid the juice on Gurule, and what I came away from with that was Louis Garul is just not here at this level. He's just not. Like, that's why I was not even a little tempted to take the dog shot on him against Correa a couple weeks ago after the Jesus fight. Look, I like Jesus. He's a gritty fighter. But I do think from a technical level, he's just really not all that good. Like, he's near the bottom of the ladder, in my opinion. You know, he is a wrestler by trade, except he's constantly getting out wrestled by bigger guys. You know, I just think he kind of lacks, despite his like muscular physique, he seems to just lack like physicality when he's in these clinch exchanges. I will say, I think if he gets Sue down in like the center of the cage, it could be a problem. But I do think Sue's done a much better job with his takedown defense against the fence lately. He's done a better job with his get-ups there. He actually seems a bit more scrambly than he did earlier in his career. So like, I low-key think Sue could get takedowns himself if Aguilar's trying to like cage push him here. But all this is to say, I mean, I still don't trust Sumudaerji as a grappler. I think him getting submitted again is a live enough outcome. I just feel like at range, I think Sue, I mean, you already touched on the height and the reach. He's got more power. He's more precise. He's way faster. He maintains distance excellently. I don't think it's going to be particularly competitive there. I think in the clinch, I just feel like I think Sue's a much better clinch striker. I mean, I think he's a clinch striker, whereas Aguilar really doesn't strike out of the clinch. I think he can work up against the fence just fine. I kind of think he's mostly just got to watch, you know, getting clipped with a big overhand right, or, you know, getting up and sticking his neck into a guillotine, which could happen. Aguilar does love to jump the gilly. But yeah, I just feel like, Sue should be closer to like the minus 300 range here. I just feel like he's got so many technical and physical advantages in this fight that he really shouldn't be giving away much more offense than he did against Raposo.
No, in theory, I completely understand. Yeah. It's just in practice, we'll see how it plays out. But before we move on to the next fight, gentlemen, hey, to the fans, thank you all so much. Please smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. Check this out. Once we hit 15K subscribers, we're going to give out a signed UFC 322 poster, signed by the entire card. So if someone was on that card, they signed it. You know who was on that card, right? Islam Makhachev, JDM, Carlos Prates, Michael Morales, Valentino, Wiley. So if someone was on the 322 card, they signed this poster. Once we hit 15K subscribers, one of y'all is going to get it. Once we hit 25K subscribers, I'm going to give y'all a piece from my personal memorabilia collection, one of my favorite pieces, which is a signed UFC glove by UFC Hall of Famer Michael Bisping. And once we hit 50K subscribers, I'm going to take one of y'all out to a Brazilian steak dinner in Atlanta, Georgia on me. So y'all hook me up and I will hook y'all up. So thank y'all so much for the support. And let's continue the show, because next up in the light heavyweight division, we got the aforementioned Diyar Nurgozhay. He's 10-2, taking on Rafael Tobias, who's 14-1. Currently, they got it Rafael Tobias minus 200. The comeback on Diyar is plus 170. Diyar 6 years older at 28. Both men 6'2". Tobias with a half-inch reach advantage at 74.5 inches of reach. So here's the honest truth, gentlemen. I'm a little bit Tobiased against Nurgozhay, especially after those last couple performances, man. I mean, like we were just talking about with Gurule, with Japanese Connor. Like, I thought Nurgozhay was a decent prospect, but like, you know, it's one thing to take a couple setbacks, no big deal. Everyone's got to get their feet wet, but when you're getting Kimura by Brengerson Ribeiro, hey, no big deal. Debut, we'll take it on the chin, right? But then you follow that up by missing weight by like 10 pounds, and you get Ezekiel choked by Salty Baldiev. I was a pretty salty baldy Ev when that happened. You know what I'm saying, man? So as far as I'm concerned, Nurgozhay has got to prove it to me. Now, as far as Tobias is concerned, let's check him out real quick. Listen, with Tobias, he's one of these guys that likes to get in the pocket and swing big. He's a shoot-to-box guy. He's a main training partner of Marco Tullio, and I like his style a lot. He's well-rounded. The only thing you got to say is that he's 22 years old. He's just a kid, and sometimes he feels himself a bit too much in there. Like, you remember Emmanuel Rodriguez, where it's like he's got a ton of skills you like, but, you know, sometimes these young kids think they're God's gift to fighting, and they're going to have to get rocked early in fights, get dropped, and just realize that, hey, this is the UFC now. You're fighting the best of the best, so you can't come in here and underestimate anyone, and this isn't the regional scene where you're just running through literally everybody you fight. So I think Tobias has the potential, and Diyar's confidence has to be down in the dumps. But one can make the argument, hey, if Nurgozhay puts it together, this could be a buy low spot, but I'm not willing to get involved because this guy hasn't shown me anything trustworthy at the UFC level. And like I already said, I'm going to repeat myself, gives me those Japanese Conor and Gurule vibes where he just can't put it together at this level. Which one of y'all's got a more confident pick, more confident take on this? All right, let's go, Stargarian.
Yeah, it's funny with those clips you were showing. So I saw those in Rafael's Contender Series fight. And I'm like, oh my god, this motherfucker is like 6'8". Sorry, pardon my French.
No, please, you're good.
I was like, this dude is huge. And then after I tape both of them, I look and they're like the same height. And I go back through some of his fights, and he's fighting like all these 5'7", 5'8", like complete choppers on DWCS and the regional scene. Having said that, I don't really know what to make of him. He seems a bit slow to me. Heavy hands. He does seem to have pretty good jiu-jitsu on top for like a big guy, which obviously seems like a blaring red flag, given what we've seen from Diyar, or not, having like a 10-pound weight advantage against Ribeiro and getting swept and Kimura by a power submission from a little guy like that for the weight class was pretty alarming. Obviously, what was even more alarming was getting Ezekiel from top position. Yeah, I don't know, man. It was. I don't know what to make of him because I look at Diyar's tape and I'm like, he seems like a pretty talented kickboxer in my opinion. Like just looking at their kickboxing ability, I actually think I'd lean Diyar on the feet here. If I knew he was going to stay calm and stay composed, like he's not like who he beat that. What's the guy's name? The Argentinian from PFL who won the championship.
Sorty.
He beat Sorty. He beat that Strawcheck kid. Like he's fought like decent guys, and he's done fine with them. It's bizarre how easy he was kind of just like wrapped up in the grappling in his last two fights to me. Like it really makes me nervous. I'm not convinced Tobias is going to have an easy time taking him down, but if he does, it's just like, I feel like we can't put any stock in Diyar's ability to defend himself down there until we see otherwise. You know what I mean? And like, you take that combined with the fact that Rafael is 22, like he should be making big improvements here. And it's like, maybe there's some value on Diyar. I think he can hang in the striking, maybe even win the striking, but there's a lot of red flags, and like I'd expect Rafael to get better. So like for me, it's a pass. I don't know how good I think Rafael is in general, but I just can't do business with Nurgozhay right now.
What about you, my friend Andrew?
I don't have much to add to that. It's basically like, it comes down to he's just a very tough guy to do business with right now. There's a lot of volatility in his performance because he just doesn't seem to he doesn't seem to rise to the occasion. He doesn't seem to represent his skills in the UFC the way I think he potentially could. So it just creates a lot of volatility. I'm personally going to pass.
So before we move on to the next fight, I just want to address one of the comments. So Jarrell said, Dan blessed me with a signed Aljo card. He will get you right. Subscribe. So basically, the reason I'm showing this comment, first of all, shout out to my boy Jarrell. Shout out and congrats on winning the contest you won. Is there's no lock of the night bullshit going on around here. If you win my contest winners always get their prizes. I'm talking about, I sent a signed glove to a dude in New Zealand before. Okay. So like, I'm not going to be like, oh, you won, but shipping might be a little expensive. No. If you win my contest, you will get your prize. That's just the bottom line. So please.
I have a McGregor sweatshirt in the other room right there from you as well. So I can vouch for that.
Yes, sir. You didn't even win that. That was just a gift. You know what I'm saying? Because you're my boy. But y'all, subscribe to Half the Battle, please. Let's get these numbers up. And you hook me up, and I will hook you up. And that's just the bottom line, my friends. So moving on. Next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Gaston Bolaños. He is 8-5, taking on Jeong Lee, who's 11-3. Currently, they got it Jeong Lee minus 305. The comeback on Gaston Bolaños is plus 255. Bolaños 3 years older at 33. Lee 3 inches taller at 5'10", and Lee has a 4.5-inch reach advantage at 73.5 inches of reach. So I want to see Jeong Lee get back on track. I mean, he looked promising in the early going. Obviously, had a couple head scratchers there, but you could give him a pass. I mean, Daniel Willie Cat's the guy might have a little a tire around his belly, but like the guy can fight his ass off. You know what I'm saying? In multiple weight classes too. Hey, Daniel Willie Cat is the true pound for pound fighter. You know what I'm saying, boys? But that being said, Bolaños is not only bottom of the barrel in the UFC, but he's also moving up a weight class, I'm pretty sure here, gentlemen. So what do you think, John? Is the Korean Tiger getting back on track?
The best thing about Gaston Bolaños is he's got an awesome nickname. The Dream Killer is just perfect. But it's funny. Like I think the Korean Tiger's got some like talent, right? He's a big dude. He's very fast. He's got power. He can grapple a little bit. But it's funny because when I was taping him, I'm like, man, I'm definitely gonna bet Bolaños. He's a seasoned kickboxer, and Lee's very easy to hit. He never wrestles on his own. And then, man, you jump into Bolaños' tape, and to your point, he's just awful. His special bread and butter is supposed to be Muay Thai, but it seems like the only part of Muay Thai he's got are really the kicks. Like, pretty good kicks to all levels, but no head strike defense. His boxing looks tragic. His grappling looks tragic. He's moving up in weight. He's kind of fragile. I think Lee, even though Bolaños is moving up in weight, is much faster. He's going to be the faster striker here. He's the heavier hitter. He's the more durable guy. I do think Bolaños could win a striking match with him if they strike for 15. But I also feel like, and like Lee, again, it's kind of like Gregory Rodriguez, not reliable to go to it. I think if Lee just decides he wants to take him down, he can pretty much do whatever he wants to him on top in this fight. I don't know how high I rate Lee as a prospect, but he's clearly got the look and like the physical intangibles. Now, whether he's another Daniel Zellhuber or whether he actually kind of like grows into his frame, I guess we'll see. Time will tell. But I think Lee should roll here pretty easily.
Zellhuber has to join Eric Silva, not the Eric Silva we saw last week. The Eric Silva that fought Matt Brown back in the day. Eric Silva, Brandon Thatch, Brandon Vera as like the most elite busted prospects we've ever seen. Because the expectations, I mean, his nickname was the Golden Boy and no one questioned it. You know what I'm saying? Gambas, what you got here?
Yeah, I think Lee takes care of business here. Like, it could be close minutes-wise, but I just think Lee, between his power and his hardware, is the much more likely of the two to have big moments. So I think he takes care of business here. It might not always look the prettiest, but he should get it done.
Yeah, I mean, like Bolaños is known for being a kickboxer, and his kickboxing isn't even that good. For MMA standards, his kickboxing is just whatever, and that's like his claim to fame. And then you see that Bellator fight where he got finished by a complete jobber. The guy he fought twice, it's like, dude, like, come on, man. Like, I don't care how long ago that was. That's some unforgivable shit,
You could argue he lost the decision to Romeus too, Like, that was a pretty close decision.
Oh, really? You think so? Either way, it was an ugly look. Win, lose, or draw. It was an ugly fight, And Romeus, another bust, another guy. Not that I think they should have signed him, but like he looked way better on his regionals, and now it got to the point where like he got destroyed his 2 UFC fights. Well, not destroyed, but looked bad his 2 UFC fights. He deleted all his social media. No one's ever heard from him ever again. So if anyone knows what happened to Cortavius Romeus, let us know, man. Like, because this fight game will take everything out of people. But yeah, I think Lee also gets back on track. He's got a super favorable matchup here. Is just about, hey, let your hands go. Like I hear in the gym, this guy's an absolute killer, and from time to time you'll see glimpses of that inside the octagon. I just want to see him go out there and put on a complete performance against a hand-picked opponent. Like both these guys are on the chopping block. I mean, Lee, are you really gonna go home? Come on, man. Like you keep your job, kid. It's Bolaños. No disrespect to him. I don't know him as a person, but just as someone who watches the sport, I just don't think Bolaños belongs at the UFC level, period, point blank. So, yeah, I got Lee as well, my friends. Now, last but not least, kicking off the card in the light heavyweight division, we got Luke Fernandez. He's 6-0, taking on Rodolfo Bellato, who's 12-3-1. Currently, they got it Luke Fernandez minus 225. The comeback on Rodolfo Bellato is plus 190. Both men 30. Bellato 2 inches taller at 6'3", has an 1.5 inches in reach at 77.5 inches of reach. And definitely the more experienced guy. So interesting fight, gentlemen. So check it out. I got some Luke Fernandez highlights. Shout out to the GOAT Meticulous. So the thing about Luke Fernandez, he's got this wrestling background, but he's been kind of feeling his hands a bit, He's decent. He mixes it up a bit, and I feel like he's just a guy that he's talented, but he's got to get his feet wet. He's got to get that experience. Less than 10 pro fights. This is his UFC debut against a much more experienced guy. Now, granted, it's a winnable matchup. Rodolfo's a walking punching bag, but if Rodolfo can weather some kind of early storm, things could get interesting. But man, I think that Luke Fernandez has all the talent and skill to come out here and not just win this fight, but finish this fight. Yo, check this one out. He tried to slam that dude on his head. That shit was nasty, bro. And then this is against Phil Hawes in pure grappling. Like, he anaconda him. Had there been strikes involved, he might have knocked him out before he got to this point. But to anaconda, a D1 wrestler, that's no joke at all. Now, Belato's a Minotauro Nogueira black belt, probably not gonna, submit him, but I've seen people get on top of Bellato and pound the shit out of him. So, yeah, I got to go Fernandez here. I'm curious what y'all think. I know, John, you had a lot to say about this. You were looking into this earlier, so tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wants to play the Bellato side here, just because, like, Luke Fernandez has 6 professional fights. Bellato's got like 15. They're the same age. Bellato's been in there with like some real killers at this point in his career, and he's had, some real successes as well as some real failures, to be honest. But obviously, Bellato is not going to be, a fish if this turns into the grappling, and I also feel like, even though Luke Fernandez is a grappler first, I'm not sure how good his wrestling actually is. He likes to do, a lot of like there were some 6 slams you showed in that highlight, but like, I don't think it's going to be easy for him to get in on the hips of like higher level guys. You kind of saw that in his last couple regional fights. So I'm not sure how easy it will be, or how easy it will be for him to take Bellato down in this fight. And if he can't get him down, it becomes a pretty interesting, fight. Having said that, if he can get him down, it wouldn't surprise me if he does work there. Like, he won't sub Bellato, I don't think. But to your point, Bellato has shown a willingness to accept guard in the past. But even if he can't get him down, it's really interesting, because I think Bellato's striking is decent. He's got power. He's got nasty calf kicks. The problem is he's just a punching bag and doesn't seem to be particularly durable. You know what I mean? So it's like the guy got hurt by Ihor Potieria. He got killed by Vitor Petrino. That's forgivable.
He almost got stopped by Ihor Potieria.
Yeah, like a couple times. Like it was a pretty ugly start to that fight for him.
Different ref that stopped.
Yeah, yes, literally. So I worry. I guess that's the thing that's holding me back. It's like, yes, there's top time upside for Fernandez, and like, it's possible if they're standing, Bellato cooks, but it's also possible if they're standing, Fernandez can just put hands on his chin, and even if he's getting outstruck, just kind of like bail himself out with the clinch in a couple big moments. So I lean Bellato, but Fernandez, he does have 5 amateur fights. I'd expect, given the experience gap, like, Bellato kind of is what he is at 30, you know what I mean? Whereas Fernandez, you're probably going to see him start to make improvements. I guess I haven't made a final decision on it yet, but I think Fernandez has more room for error in this fight, if that makes sense. Whereas Bellato, I think he's got to keep this upright, and he's got to, avoid getting kept on the fence or getting hurt. So I lean the Fernandez side, but I'm thinking about a Bellato bet.
Okay, interesting. Well, Gambis, I know you have something in common with Fernandez, similar wrestling credentials. What do you think about this matchup?
Oh, where did he wrestle? I didn't even know that.
I don't know the exact spot, but he was D3 as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I taped him first and felt like he was pretty raw still, and I was like, wow, he's minus 225 already in the UFC. That it probably seems a little bit much. Then I refreshed my memory on Bellato and was like, man, now's not the time. I think Fernandez gets it done. Bellato, he's hittable. I think he could potentially get grappled. So, yeah, I think Fernandez takes this one.
All right, gentlemen, before we get out of here, we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So I'm going to take it first so y'all get a chance, and I'm going to totally take the easy way out here. But, guys, I mean, come on. Y'all know what the fight to watch is. It's this main event. That's just the bottom line. I mean, like, not only is it a rematch over 10 years in the making, but you're dealing with two of the most exciting fighters in the history of the sport. Knock on wood, there's no way this fight's going to suck. And, I mean, whoever wins this, they're already stars, but they're just going to take it to that next level. One of them could get a McGregor fight. You never know. International Fight Week. I'm going to make a bold prediction. Whoever wins this fights McGregor International Fight Week. So for that reason, Holloway versus Oliveira is my fight to watch. Gambis, what's your fight to watch?
I'm gonna say my fight to watch is Cody Durden versus Tumendemberel because there's no way it's not a banger.
Okay, I feel that. And John?
I'm gonna go Brunno and Gregory here. I think that's a pretty compelling rematch. That ended in violence in the first time. Does have some potential to disappoint, but I suspect RoboCop will force them into a phone booth at some point here, and there'll be some fireworks.
Sweet. Fans, let us know what's your fight to watch and who your fighter to watch is. Now, normally I do fighter to watch, but I'm gonna change it up. Do fighters to watch. I'm gonna go with 3 personally, but y'all are more than welcome to go 1, 2, or 3 max. And for me, listen, guys, I got to go with the 3 Codys. Not only are the 3 Codys super exciting to watch for the most part, but their jobs are on the line. This could literally be all of their last UFC fights, or it could be the start of something great. And these guys have to know that there ain't no pussyfooting here. You got to come out here and make a statement if you want to stay on the UFC roster. And if not, at least go out emphatically. And I think that's going to be the case. So for that reason, Garbrandt, Durden, and Brundage are my fighters to watch, gentlemen. Stargarian, who's your fighter to watch?
Raul Rosas Jr. I think he's going to come out here. I think he's going to dominate Rob Font, and I think he's got a pretty high potential to finish him here. And I think come Monday morning, we're going to be talking about Raul Rosas Jr. as will he become the youngest lightweight champion ever? I don't personally think that'll happen, but I think that's the conversation that's going to be happening come Monday.
Wow. And Gambis, talk to me. Fighter to watch.
I'm gonna say Reinier de Ridder because we've seen what he could do when his streak's been rolling, but I think this is gonna be revealing of who he is as a fighter and a person, of how he responds to a really bad performance against Brendan Allen.
Well, my friends, I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to speak with me right here, right now on Half the Battle. You can follow Gambis at Bets and Picks MMA, John Stargarian, the Club and Sub podcast, and MMA Fox on Twitter. Andrew, any message for the fans?
Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe. And Dan, thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. John, any message for the fans?
No, same deal. Like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in here. And yeah, I'll be live tomorrow night, even though you already heard all my takes. So if you want to come see Danny's takes, come stop by. Dan, thank you for having me. I'd love to come back.
Of course, make sure you'll definitely tune into that. And to the fans, thank you all so much for all your support. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment. Let's get the subscribes up. Shout out the GOAT Meticulous. And of course, shout out the fans. Thank you all so much. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.